Hey everybody, it's Calvin Nation here again with another knife review for you. Today's review is going to be on the Benchmade Model 32 Morpho Balisong. I've been doing a lot of Balisong videos but not near enough reviews, so I'm glad to be doing that again. I'm sure you guys are as well. So like all my reviews, I'm going to mention what the company themselves has to say about this knife, as well as talk a little bit from my point of view, the design features and aspects of this knife, and then later we'll hopefully talk about the flippability and the performance of this knife. So let's get started with what Benchmade themselves has to say about it. They say that, and they're referring to the 51 and 32 with this statement, and that is that these Balisongs are awesome lightweight flippers. They also mentioned that it has a patented spring latch locking mechanism, D2 tool steel 60 to 62 HRC, crown modified spear point blade, machined and skeletonized black G10 handle scales with 6AL4V titanium blue anodized and jeweled liners, and finally they say 6AL4V blue anodized and laser engraved titanium pocket clip. So they really only talk about the features of the knife instead of the origin and stuff of the knife. So let's get started with what I think of the knife. So we'll start off like my other reviews with the blade and kind of work our way down. So like they said, it has a D2 tool steel. This is not a stainless steel, but for not being a stainless steel, it is pretty corrosion resistant. So from what I've heard, it's pretty well just like one step away from being a stainless. But I do prefer a stainless for Balisongs. A little bit less upkeep, but for the D2 you're also not going to have to sharpen it as much. It's got a harder steel obviously, which is going to hold the edge a little bit longer, but it's also going to be a little bit harder to sharpen, as well as you're going to have to make sure it's oiled, just maintain it so it doesn't rust. But I haven't heard too many problems with the 51 or the 32 being, having it rust. I've had a tiny bit of speckling on my 51, but I took care of that pretty quick. But let's look at the point. It's got a pretty sharp point. This is a spear point blade, so it is pretty well a symmetrical blade style. Obviously it's not, it doesn't have a double edge, but you can see that it is a very nice spear point. My edge didn't come super sharp, and that is just kind of a lemon for for mine only. Yours will come a little bit sharper. You can see it is a little bit dull. Most 32s will have a lot of a sharper edge. That's the way mine came in box, but it has that nice little swedge. Also, like they said, it has the crown spine, which is absolutely amazing. It feels great. It looks great. I think it's a design that Benchmade should keep doing for all their Balisongs, even their folders. I know it has a crown spine on my Bedlam as well, just on that very little edge before the swedge starts. But I absolutely love that. The D2 has a little bit of a different finish almost. It looks almost more like pearly, a little bit more silver, I guess you could say. Even compared to my 51. My 51 I remember looked just like this, I guess, due to wear. It looks a little bit more, not as shiny, I guess you could say. But I think it looks great. As we move our way down a little bit here, we can see the logo, the traditional Balisong logo. I think this is already, or even from the Pacific Cutlery days. I think they even had this logo way back then. You can see there it's a butterfly, it says Balisong, has a 32 on the bottom. We flip it over. It says D2, Benchmade USA, and you can also see these two cutouts here. That is for the Zen pins. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But we move down a little bit. We have our pivot screws that screw into the pivot pins there. These are a T9, I believe, a Torx wrench 9, and make sure you get these Loctited. Make sure you get all the screws Loctited on this. Balisongs, well, for the most part, loosen up right away on you if you do not Loctite them. Just Loctite it, wait 24 hours, and then you can start flipping these guys. But yeah, Loctite all the screws. These can come out in like the matter of 10 minutes if you don't Loctite them. But yes, here's the Zen pins. Like I mentioned, they land in this cutout. It is an alternative to the tang pins. For most Balisongs, you'll see tang pins. That is just literally pins on the tang end of the blade, which the handles will collide with. For Zen pins, it's pins in the handles which the blade collides with. So that's how those differ. There's no real benefit other than that these will probably last you longer than tang pins. A tang pin on my 42 did break, But either way, if either of the variations break, either Zen or Tang, you'll be able to ship it into Benchmade with no problem. So, you know, I don't really have a preference. Either one is good for me. Also, another benefit to Zen pins is, and you could do it with the Tang pin anyway, but it has this little cut out edge on the Tang end of the blade where the pins will collide in the open position. This provides a little bit of a sharpened edge for hand-to-hand combat if needed without, you know, deadly force. You can use that as a pommel or whatever you call it. So that's kind of cool there. But yeah, so there's the Zen pins. If we work our way down a little bit, or let's actually have a look at the texture of the handle. You can see it is G10, like I mentioned, and it is textured in a way that actually looks kind of like it's woven. I find it looks kind of like a carbon fiber almost, and contrary to what you might think, it is not textured in the way that you can feel it. It is perfectly smooth. It's just like a visual variation in the G10. It looks really nice. So it doesn't really provide any extra grip, that little texture and that checkering there. As we work our way down, you can see those jeweled anodized blue liners. They might look a little bit purple on camera. They are blue. If you actually really wanted, you could swap them out and anodize them yourself, make them green or red or something. That'd be cool. I've seen a few like that. Benchmade does have a limited edition 51 in S30V that has a gold anodized liner, so that's kind of cool. But you can see there, they look very, very nice. They're not super smooth, those liners on the edge. You can see a little bit of machining on there. But as for the anodizing, it stays there really, really well. They do a good job anodizing the liners and the pocket clip. On both my 51 and my 32, I've had relatively no wear in the anodizing, so that's good. You can see here the skeletonized G10 handles. They take off a tiny bit of weight, not much. It doesn't really need it. It's more just a design look, a visual bonus on the knife. And you can see there a tiny little cutout which actually acts as a liner lock almost for the spring latch. I'll talk a little bit more about that. On this side we have our pocket clip, again jeweled, or not jeweled, just anodized blue, titanium. It says Benchmade there in silver letters. Looks really nice. And again, this also doesn't wear too much either. These are press fit pins. I do have a tutorial on taking the pocket clip off if you do want to do that. We see here our spacers, and I actually wanted to look at this. I haven't done it yet. I wanted to know if the spacers are the same size. Yes, they are, okay, on the 51 and the 32. So that's kind of cool. So I guess you could say that there's a little bit more weight pound for pound in the 32 than the 51, so that's kind of cool. But you do have those spacers, and they have a little bit of kind of jimping on that. It is flush, or actually it does come out of the liners in G10 there just a little bit. It can provide a little bit extra grip, but it is only in the closed position, so it's not that beneficial. Again, just more of a design feature and visual bonus. But let's have a look at that spring latch. Like I mentioned in my triage review, I really like the way Benchmade designs locks and locking mechanisms, because this is actually really innovative. Let's get nice and close. As you can see here, the bottom or the tang end of the latch, we kind of have a cup, kind of forms like a C, and that attaches to this pin, which is attached to that titanium liner. And you can see that that liner is cut out a little bit, and what that does is it makes the spring for the spring latch. You can see when I push on that pin with the little cup there on the end of the latch, you can see that the liner moves down, and if you press on it, let it go, it springs it. So that's really, really innovative. Definitely a first in the balisong world, using a liner to create the spring for a latch. I think it's really amazing. Very, very cool. Really, really like that. So another thing that is awesome about this latching mechanism Benchmade designed is that it isn't spring loaded in this direction when you're in the open position. So when you latch it in the open position, if you're using it and you happen to squeeze it by accidentally, it will not pop off. And you can see here, if I demonstrate, you can see, you know what, let it focus for a sec. you can see that when I squeeze it and the handles are off of that latch, it's not, you know, bouncing off or coming out of the handles. But when we have it in the closed position, that's where if you squeeze it, it's going to pop open. So squeeze it, pops open, and some people don't think it is a spring latch. It is a spring latch. You know, people don't believe it just because if you don't know really the whole properties of the latch, you just think it's a T-latch, but it is a spring latch. It just does free flow when you're flipping, which some people might not like. But you can also see here, which is another cool thing, get it to focus, even closed and opened, the latch, even though it does free flow around a little bit, it actually never touches the handle, which is actually super cool. I always thought it just kind of rested against the handle, but you can see there that it's like a millimeter away from that handle, which is sick. Really, really great attention to detail there from Benchmade's part. So yeah, there's the whole knife the way I see it, and I really, really like this knife. I think it got a little bit of oil there, you can see. That's one thing to keep in mind, is just to have a little bit of oil on that blade so it doesn't rust. But let's get on to flippability. Now, obviously, being a smaller version of the 51, or actually the 51 being a larger version of the 32, since the 32 actually came out before the 51, the 32 is a little bit less of a flipper than the 51 just due to its size. Obviously, the smaller you get, the harder it's going to be flipping. I personally think the 51 is a great flipper, and you know, bringing that down just a couple inches to the 32, I think the 32 also makes for a great flipper. Also, like I showed, because those spacers there are the same size, you actually have probably more weight for like pound to pound in the bottom of these handles than you do in the 51. So, you know, for its size, the 32 is probably actually a better flipper than the 51, but obviously overall the 51 is going to be better just because it's longer. But I think you guys probably get what I mean. But it's an awesome flipper. Obviously, if you're looking to get into flipping only, not a way I would go, since it's not really that much cheaper than the 51. I would just go for the 51 right away if I was trying to get into flipping. But the 32 is a great flipper nevertheless. It's also a great EDC. And I guess probably with talking about the design features, you guys can kind of understand why. Perfect size, perfect weight, only being, let's see, how heavy, where is it, 2.7 ounces, so very, very light. This one's only 3.3 ounces, but 2.7 ounces, great ergonomics, got that pocket clip, those little horns there of the tang naturally make kind of a thumb ramp, and you know, they make it so you're not going to slip up and cut your hand. Got D2 steel, which is going to be very hard and very good for cutting tasks, and it's got that nice blade shape as well with a little bit of belly. But I think it's a good flipper. I'm not sure yet if I will have any footage of me flipping, but once in a while I'll go back to my 32 and flip it. But I mean, you know, when I have those full-size ballies, it's not something I often flip. But when I do, it performs adequately. I can do everything I can on a large one, just not as easy and maybe not as quick, but nevertheless it is a good flipper. Okay, so if I do happen to do any flipping footage, I'll just put it in here while I read some of the specs. The specs overall is just blade length here is 3.25 inches, blade thickness is 0.1 inches, handle thickness 0.44 inches, blade material, D2 tool steel, blade hardness is 59 to 61 HRC. It actually said up there 60 to 62. Obviously the way they temper it, it can vary a little bit. Blade style, crown modified spear point, weight is 2.7 ounces. We got a pocket clip which is laser engraved, titanium, it's movable, forgot to mention that, only in a tip up carry, but you can put it on either side of the bite handle, only on the bite handle, not the safe handle. Overall length 7.29 inches, closed length is 4.39 inches, sheath material, sheath is sold separately, you do get a little pouch, it is a blue class knife. So there you guys have it. There's my review on the 32. Actually, before I go, I'll just mention the other variations you can get. I believe the other variations is a 32S, which is a serrated 32 in a plain edge satin finish, or sorry, not plain edge, sorry, just satin finish. You can also get it serrated with a black blade and a black blade with a plain edge. So there's overall 4 variations, and there we go. That's my review. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and tell me what you think, and I appreciate you watching. So see you guys for the next video.